Hi students, this is the second unit, and I think you might have enjoyed the first unit sessions, and we have discussed about so many concepts about big data, machine learning, and with respect to different aspects with our data sciences, right? So as per your syllabus is concerned in MCA semester 5th, so in second unit, we'll discuss about data to the features. That is second unit. Then you will have a computing simple statistical analysis. Then we'll have simple visualizations, and we have case studies in this second unit. And today in this sessions, we'll discuss about from data to features, and we'll have discussions on feature selections and so on. So content. So now you can see different content over here. So I can move slides. You can see here. So now in this particular slides, we'll discuss about. So in this topic from data to features, as I told, when we are going for data pre-processing or whatever the different kinds of a process we have, when we are going for mining the data or analyzing that data or predicting the patterns in the last lectures we have seen. So now in this particular sessions we will see how data we can make into a features, right? And how to select the different kinds of feature selections while we are going for data analysis, right? So now in this particular sessions we will see the different aspects like a interactive of group discussions, how it helps for feature selections. Now representing the problems with matrices. So now we have to represent the different types of scenario or problems or issues with respect to the matrix form, tabular form, or we have rows and columns format. Then we'll have a representing the problems with the relations. So we have to see different kinds of problems or different kinds of issues related to the relations, right? So now later on we'll see different kinds of examples. Now we'll start one by one. Now, what is data to feature selections? Before entering into the feature selections, I want to remind you about data. So, what is data? As a very simple and a very common way we can define data. What are the different types of raw data available, right? Which is not processed, which is not at all. It is not processed with through different kinds of techniques or methods, and whatever the data directly collected from the external sources, that we call data. And to some extent we can define also whatever the real world emotions, actions, feelings, or whatever the different kinds of things we are entering into the computing environment through different devices. Like we have several devices like input devices. Then we have different kinds of input devices like through keyboard, through microphone, and through different kinds of electronic devices. We enter the different kinds of data, that we call it actually raw data, and we are entering into the computing environment. So now after sending the data, so data may come across different phases, and we have to make some different kinds of processes. So later on we'll have a process data which we call informations. So we have already come across the different types of data evaluations like data, information, then we have a knowledge, then we have intelligence. These are the hierarchy you have. So after processing the data, we'll have information, and after collecting all the information or processing the information, we'll gather the knowledge. Now out of knowledge we can have some intelligence. Now as per the process of data analysis, okay, so you can have the first stage of data collections, right? So you can see in this particular diagram this process, okay. So data, Here we are collecting the data, what we call raw data. So that data can be moved from these different stages, and it can have in the final destinations in a different form. So that process we call process of transformations, data transformations. Already we have covered in the last lecture, right? So data transformations, we have a pre-processing, data cleaning, right? So after data cleaning or the pre-processing, you might have seen this process data, that is feature selection and extraction. That's the part we have to cover in this particular session. Then you will have a transformed data, whatever the data you are making in a different form, which can be used for your different purposes like designing the patterns, taking different kinds of reports, and we can analyze it differently. So once the data is rectified, once the data is transformed, once the data is purely processed, then only several things we can do, which is at the last stage, data interpretations and the evaluation stages, right? So now here the important part is, whatever the data we have to make it into the features way, right? We have to make different kinds of feature selections based on your data, whatever the data you have collected. Now, in this particular stage, you will find feature selection is also called variable selection or attribute selection. So now what is variable and what is here the meaning of attribute selection? Now feature selections based on, it is also called variable selection. Now what does it mean? Now whenever you are having different kinds of data, that data cannot be directly used for different purposes in our data analytical processes. So we have to make in a proper way, we have to arrange in a proper way, like you might have come across in database management system. So when we have a data, okay, raw data, we have to represent into a matrix form, that is, we call it tabular format. So now the simple data can be represented into the tabular format. And when we are representing the tabular format as a two-dimensional matrix, right, rows and columns format. So that time we can say these are the attributes, that is field column wise, right? So when we are representing the data into a column wise, we call one field, or we call it in database, we call it, we have a attribute. So now simple data can be converted into a attribute based, or sometimes we can have in the row. So now, or we can make it a different kind of variables. Now, for example, I have collected different way I have collected, or differently we have collected different data, like the details of citizens, right, in India, for example. Now age, education, then income, then you'll have what you call different kinds of assets they have, right? So they have a different kinds of backgrounds, right? So we have collected so many informations. Now that informations of citizens of India can be represented into, like for example, we can have a name of the city, name of the person. So that is one column. The second column we can have, that is date of birth. Third column we can have qualification. Next column will have address. Next column will have, for example, income per annum. So these are the column wise representation. When we are collecting, we are not thinking about data. It may be a tabular format or a rows and column format. But when we are gathering data, that time we are converting into different types of variables. Here we can say variables age. It varies similar values, or it takes different kinds of values. That means from different persons we can collect age values, we can put in this. So variable, that means age is age here we will consider as a variable. Then if you will have next qualification again will have a variable. Now in database also we call it attribute. So attribute having some values, attribute values. So this is how we can define the variables. And when normal data is collected, we have to represent into variable format. That means we have to represent in a matrix format. So once the data is represented into matrix format, it will be very easy to identify and collaborate, or we can add some data, similar types of data into that. And that is one way we can say this is how to prepare the data, and we have to set as a variable or attribute based. Now the second point says it is the automatic selections of attributes in your data, that is your feature selections, right? So it is an automatic selections of attribute automatically, different kinds of tools we have. So based on the data, it creates different types of attributes, that means variables in your data, such as columns in the table, as I told, that are most relevant to the predictive model problems you are working on. So whenever we are going for different kinds of analysis, different kinds of predictions, different kinds of pattern designing, so that time that column wise and row wise, or we call it matrix tabular format data, will help you, or it helps as a predictive model for that particular situations, for that particular problems. Now it is very important either in manual or in automatic way, and if you have different kind of tools, that time automatic selection process may happen. Like we have Weka tools, already we have completed in the last session. So Weka tools also have some features like how to select the features. So that time we can go for Weka tools also, and we can have automatic selections of attributes, right? So how to select different kinds of attributes out of your data. So that can be possible through different types of apps like Weka, R. So these are the different kinds of tools which helps to select different types of attributes in your data. So now finally we can say in brief, selection process, feature selection is the process of selecting a subset of relevant features for use in model constructions, right? We have to frame a particular model, or we have to create a particular framework, so that we can have a different kinds of selecting different kinds of subset. Easily we can select the subsets of that, so complete sets easily. And that means it may be a particular variable based constructions, right? So you have to see that our data, normal data, can be represented into a variable format, or it will be based on attribute format. That time we can have easily to use feature selections process. So this is how we can have. So now this is about your data to feature selections, right? So next we'll have data feature selections algorithms. Now when we are going for as of now, we have discussed about how to transform, how to convert data, your collected data, into your feature based, or we can make a variable based or attribute based, okay, based on a different types of model, right? We can represent our data, and it will be very easy to extract a different type of a predictive model, right? If you are representing your data into a column based, or we call it your attribute based, right, data representations. Now when we are going for this particular feature selections, now we have converted data into features. Now we have to select it for our next further process. We have to select, we have different kinds of selection process. You can see here we have three different kinds, three different kinds of algorithms for feature selections. So now feature selections, first is filter methods, the second was is wrapper methods, and the last one is embedded methods. So in this particular algorithms, or different kinds of algorithms we can use for selecting the features, and whatever the features we have done, out of our data, right? So we have made, and we have, based on the different kinds of data, we have made different kind of features. So now we have to select it through different algorithms. So filter methods selections we can see. So filter features selections methods applied a statistical measure to assign a scoring to reach a features. Now here we are using statistical methods, statistical measurement, right? The features are ranked by the score and either selected to be kept or removed from the data set. So now depends on your rank, depends on your score, depends on your value, statistical value. We can decide whether this particular values can be, or this particular features can be in the data set, or it can be removed. We have to decide sometimes, because we have to select the features. Now sometimes you will see unnecessary features will create different types of wrong predictions or wrong analytical reports. So we have to be very careful when we are thinking that there is a less score, or there is a very low score. So we can remove that information, or that particular data set we can remove from the data set, whole data set. The methods are often univariate, or consider the features independently or with regard to the dependent variable. Now here consider, you might have seen dependent variable, independent variable, right? So now sometimes it will be difficult to remove, or it will be difficult to discard or remove the data, okay, from others data which is dependent to other, right? So that time we have to see there should not be any disturbances, there should not be any anomalies among the data sets, right? For example, we can have an examples of some filter methods includes the chi-square test. Now in statistics we use chi-square test. That means we have different kinds of variables, right? If you have a different kinds of values, right, we can put the chi-square test to test that. So now we have a different kinds of testing techniques. Now normally when we are going for different hypothetical testings, right? We have a t-test, we have a chi-square test, we have a z-test, right? So this test normally used for the based on the different kinds of attributes, different kinds of variables, we can say, right? So we can put and we can find out the values on that, okay? Depends on values, we can say suppose 5%, okay, or 50%, okay, correlate with this, or we can find out the how much the data is correlate to that particular data. So accordingly we can discard, or we can select or deselect the data. That is also filtering method. That means normally what happens here, we are filtering the data, we are filtering the features, we are selecting the features based on filter methods. We have some proof that this is the process, and we have this particular values. That's why we have selected it, and that's why we have rejected this. So now these are the statistical or scientific calculations we have. Now correlation, coefficient course, these are the examples of your filtering methods. Now exactly you can find out how much percentage you have, or what is the value of a correlate, okay? So that is the methods we can have to select the attributes or to select your features, whatever you have, right? So now it is a very good methods to feature selections. We can use filter methods. So now normally in Excel also we can use this normally by using Excel for data, okay? We can apply this type of filter method, right? So now feature selections sometimes, and if you'll see the simple thing, okay, without using also sometimes we use in Excel, like we have a different kinds of data. Normally when we are preparing a different kind of data, like if you need a particular, for example, the details of students informations, right? So all the data are there, but we need only those who are fee defaults. For example, few students that did not pay properly fee, right? so they did not pay full fees, right? If you want to filter this, so now just you have to select or filter the column or the features which is based on the financial data. So now if you will filter this, so you will have a data that means those who have a fully paid or those who have a partially paid. Now this is an manual process we call, but in our data mining or in our process of our data analysis, we have a automatic system. The tools will decide this, so that can be possible, right? So this is just I am giving an example of how you can see that directions, that is filter method based, right? How to select the features in that. So this is, I think, clear about filter methods. We use statistical methods here. Based on the different types of scores, we can decide or we can select or deselect the data sets from the whole data set, right? So it will be a very, very useful algorithms when we are going for data analysis. Next, we will have wrapper methods. So wrapper methods consider the selections of a set of features. Now here also we can use for feature selections process. It's a search problems where different combinations are prepared. Different combinations are prepared, evaluated and compared to other combinations. Now here the group of features can be compared to group of features. So compared to other combinations, a predictive model or framework is used to evaluate a combinations of features and assign a score based on the model accuracy, right? So an example, if wrapper method is recursive features eliminations algorithm. Now what is this? Now sometimes what happens? Here? So many features can be combined. That means wrapped. Okay, so when we wrap something, that means we are hiding something, right? So now here we are wrapping something, that means we are collectively we are taking few elements, right, or few particular features, and we have to compare it with the others, right? So now for example, uh, you might have come across different types of data when we are going for like share market, right? So you might have seen when we are going for investing our what do you call different types of shares we have to invest there. So now you have to select the companies. So selecting a company is selecting a group of what we call portfolio features, right? So that is biodata of your company. That means you have to see the company's strength and weakness. Combinedly, you have to decide it. So here I'm just talking an example. I'm not giving a clear flash of this. So I'm talking about the company's portfolio means you have to see what is the assets, what is the liabilities, what is the turnover amount, right? So whatever the data you need, okay, collectively we are finding one company. The second company, again similar data will be there. You combine it and you find out, okay, this particular company is the rank is this company rank is this. So I can invest in this company because it is more feasible, more what do you call, we can see the more percentage we are getting or values we are getting here. So now observing the portfolio, it, it indicates that so many things, so many attributes, so many what I call features we are collecting or we are combining with that particular company. So that is one kind of a real example you can take, right? So that means different kinds of criteria. We are not going for only those who are instantly they are having profit. We have to see last 5 years. We have to see the last 10 years about the companies and companies all related data, financial data. You have to combine it and you have to find out the rank. You have to find out a particular value you can set. This is the company's rank or whatever may be, right? So after combining, so you are combining all the criteria, financial criteria you are seeing, again you are comparing to other companies. So XYZ companies and your PQR companies. So here these two companies, they are compared each other. So when we are compared here, it is not only one attribute is compared here, it is a set of attributes or set of values or a set of criteria we are comparing simultaneously. So this type of what you call methods we call it. It's a one kind of feature selection algorithm that we call rapid methods. I think this is clear. So next we'll have a third one, embedded methods. Okay. So embedded methods learn which features best contribute to the accuracy of model while the model is being created. The most common type of embedded feature selection methods are regularizations method. So now here the point is embedded methods we are combining. So now in embedded methods we have to see the accuracy. So based on, because we have created a model for accuracy, for example, we have created a framework, right? Framework or model. So that model can be used to see the accuracy of your features, right? So that accuracy, if you'll see, that is contributes a lot. Okay, the features contributes a lot, then we can see this is some extent we are or that particular features will be some extent useful for our analysis, right? Examples, regularizations algorithms are lasso, elastic net, and ridge regression, right? So ridge regressions, you can have these are the examples of your embedded methods. Here what happens here, we are taking a particular model and we are finding the accuracy. Now for example, sometimes you might have come across, we use different kinds of requirements gathering in our software engineering, right? You think on that direction. In software engineering, we have different kinds of SDLC, software development lifecycle, right? So now in software development lifecycle, we have a different framework model, right? Already said, like water flow model, like your spiral model, we have a V model, we have a rapid application development model, RAD model, then we have different kinds of models we have, and they have a different purposes. We can use that model. Now the point here is this model will help you. Sometimes one model we have a prototyping model. You might have come across this word, prototyping model. So we have to design a model instantly at the beginning before completely collecting the requirements of your software development. You have to design one model. You have to design one software, okay, which may be a few features based, but you have to design, and that particular model you can implement or you can hand over to the client. Okay, so they can use this and they can have their requirements. So that time you can collect. Now in this particular scenario, what happens, you see the requirements which is not at the beginning, which is not feasible to collect. Now because of this model, the requirements can be tested or it can be verified through your prototype model. So now here we are extracting the requirements of the client, which is not properly visible, which is not properly extracted at the beginning, but later on, because of this particular model, we can extract easily from the clients or from the users or from the different people, those who are using that particular software. So the developers, they can extract the requirements by using this model. Here this model verifies different kinds of requirements and which is the best requirements we can note down and we can implement in our development. So what happens here, we are embedding, here, we are combining. Here one is accuracy part, that means how much it is accurate or how much it is relevant. Okay, so now depends on different kinds of features of a particular process. We have collected different kinds of data, and we have represented into the features. That features can be tested. That features can be tested in our model. Now regression, right? When we are going for different types of regression analysis, right? Normally we have a functions, and based on the functions we put the values and we have to compare it. So now this is one kind of methods where you can use for our feature selections algorithms, right? So these are the different kinds of important algorithms for uh, feature selections, right? So now it is very important when we are going for mining something, when we are going for predicting something, when we are going for generating the report, final report, or when we are going for designing the patterns, right? So that time we can use these are the techniques, right, for our feature selection process. I think these three different kinds of algorithms, I think some extent you might have cleared this, right? If you have any doubts, you can have further discussions in the forum also. The Bharati Vidyapith provides that facilities. So now, next you will have overview of features as I told, right? So when we are going for feature selections, we can summarize the feature selections as follows. Feature selections select a subset of input features from the data sets. Now subset of input features from the data set. Now we are not taking complete data. We are just selecting those who are relevant, those who are accurate, those who are meaningful to that particular process. So we have to see, already we have seen unsupervised learning process, supervised learning we have seen, that's also. So unsupervised process or learning process we can have, do not use the target variables, that is remove the redundant variables. Now sometimes what happens, see, if you are taking redundant variables like for example redundant variables, so what happens, you can take a name, right? So again you can take another variable, that is your name and full name, right? So now it is not relevant here. You have to keep all different kinds, like your complete name, right? So now the same part it is repeating here. So better to use only once. If you are only thinking about that we need complete name, so put full name, only one criteria. Don't repeat it full name or your surname, first name, last name. So why unnecessary this data will be repeated here? We have to remove that. So now redundant variables, the repeated attributes, repeated columns must be removed. So now that we can see correlations, right? By based on the correlations, right? We in statistical analysis we have correlations, coefficient correlations, right? So correlations aspects we can use where the variables can be eliminated which are redundant or which are repeated, right? Then in the supervised, use the target variables, that is remove the irrelevant variables in supervised learning, irrelevant, right, which is not relevant. Now one is redundant, which is repeated, another one is which is not appropriate. Now suppose if I'll say the school students, right, research publication, is it related to a school student's research paper, and suppose college students or university student research paper, number of papers published in so and so publishers, right? So it is not exactly relevant to the school students, those who are in schooling, right? So they are starting, their career is started at the initial stage. We cannot have like a research part, right? So that time what happens, we can remove. And another one, you can take another example. For example, if I am talking about senior citizen and I am giving a particular predictions on senior citizens, right? So more than 60 years. So that time, less than 60 years people, we should not take that value. It is unnecessarily, it is irrelevant. When we are talking about a senior citizen, we'll see in our India, we take as more than 60 age, right? Senior citizen will consider. So that time we can eliminate that variables if we have. So now sometimes we have used the target variables and we have to remove some irrelevant variables. So removing the irrelevant, which is not relevant or which is not suit for the analysis, that is supervised. Unsupervised, we are just removing the redundant, right, which is visible. Okay, this particular variable is repeated so many times, so remove that, right? So under in supervised learning process or supervised process, you will find wrappers, search for well-performing subset features, right? Already we have discussed about that, regressions, right? So wrap, so that means we have to combine different kinds of features at a time, we have to compare it. Again, we have a filter methods. Then already we have discussed about filter methods also, statistical, like we have to find out a value and based on the ranks or values we can discard, we can put, or we can keep that. That is also selection, already we have completed. That is next one is, that is on supervised also. In-centric we have, so that is algorithm that performs the automatic features selecting during the your in-centric means is it's a properties, right? So in-centric in nature, right? So suppose you can have different kind of what do you call properties, right? So in-centric in nature, extrinsic in nature, right? So that time we can see. So that's the example of decision tree. So these are the methods we can use for feature selections based on supervised and unsupervised learning process. So this is how we call it all types of techniques we applied for our feature selections, right? So now you can see in the right hand side figures, you can see here feature selections, okay? That is, here we can see dimensional reductions, the different types of attributes we have, dimensions we have to reduce it. That's the ultimate solutions, because the amount, the appropriate data will send to the analysis, that can be more accurate or more what you call feasible to predict a particular decisions. So in feature selections, we can divide into, as I told, so unsupervised and supervised. In supervised, we will have in-centric, wrapper, and filter methods. And these are the examples you can see here, tree in-centrics. Okay, so these are the RFE under wrapper. Already we have discussed, and we have a filter method, statisticals, right? Methods we have features importance, right? Based on the features, we can filter that. So now the part is here, you can see here dimensionality reductions. So dimensionality reductions means the project input data into the lower dimensional feature space. So sometimes what happens, suppose if I'll say um, sales informations of a day. Now, agent, or for example, any particular salesman, whatever the different kinds of items he has to sell, and quantity, total amount, okay, per day. So this is one particular two-dimensional, we can fit rows and columns values, right? So if we'll find for weekly or monthly, okay, so and so 30 days, for 30 days. So you might have seen in our data mining concepts, we have a cube method, right? So cube, that means we have a multi-dimensional approach. So now the point here is, if you are enhancing the dimensionality, so it will be very difficult to handle for analysis the data. So whatever the exact and relevant you need the features, as per we call it dimensions, you put, or rest of the things you have to reduce it. So dimensionality reductions helps to take appropriate decision, to take appropriate analysis. So you have to see that. So lower dimensional feature space you have to always consider when we are going for any particular projects, or when we are going for any particular analytical things, right? So this is how we can summarize or we can overview the selection or feature selections. I think this is about the feature selection, I think clear. So we can go for next slide. Now, as per your unit, it has given that under this we have another discussions, group discussions. Now, how it is important and what is group discussions, right? So we'll little bit we'll continue this. So now, interactive of group discussions. Now, the point here is we are talking about feature selections. Now, feature selections, if we are going for group discussions among the staffs, among the team members, among whatever the stakeholders we have, if you are properly discussed, and we can find out the exact feature selections process. So now it is also very important. We have to see and we have to conduct a group discussions, right? So now in this particular sessions, we'll see several slides we'll have regarding the group discussions. What is group discussions? Normally, we in different industries, okay, in different corporate level, we use group discussion, GD. We are in short form, we call it GD, group discussions. So group discussion is an important activity in academic, business, and administrative spheres, as I told. So every sphere you can see group discussion is very important. It is an systematic and purposeful interactive oral process. So oral discussions is very important when we are taking particular discussions or we are taking a decisions. Here the exchange of ideas. So each and every experts, each and every members in the group discussions, they exchange their ideas, thoughts, right, and feelings take place through oral communications. They can have some verbal communications. They can have some communications direct face to face. And the feelings take place from oral communications. The exchange of ideas takes place in a systematic and structured way. So group discussions helps to have some exchanging process of ideas, thoughts, and feelings. So you can see the skills reports for group discussion. So what are the different skills we have or we need or we use in our group discussion communications? It's because it is oral discussions, it is oral communications, we need communication skills. So when we are going for group discussions, there must one skills we need communication skills. Both verbal interactions and non-verbal interactions, we need communication skills. The verbal part displays the clarity of thoughts, where the same is communicated to others, right? So now we can use different kinds of epitness of languages. We can have a non-verbals also used. So facial expression, body languages we can use. AGD is not a debate, but merely is a discussion. So sometimes the discussions may convert into the debate, right? But it is not recommended when we are going for GD. It should not be a debate. So debate is something different from GD. So here you have to make discussions because you have to take some decisions, right? So debate may have some outputs, there may be some conflicts, there may be some thought exchanging, and it gives a different negative impacts. But when we are going for group discussions, we should see that there must be a good result, because depends on the result, we can have a different kinds of good decisions, right? Each person's viewpoints matters, and thus should be paid attention to, right? It is very important. Every person's in the group discussions should keenly involved in that discussions, so that it must be effective discussions. So very important skills we need for communications. Communication skills is a very important part of your group discussions. Now, the next you will have a skills required for discussion is listening skills. Now you have to very patience. You can act as a patient listener. Otherwise, it will be not fruitful. So try not to interrupt others. Sometimes you have to give a chance to others to speak, and you have to listen carefully. Make notes that make notes and speaks when it turns when it is your turns. So now you have to wait for your turn and you can speak. Don't interrupt others, because sometimes interrupting others, sometimes we can have some what you call we can neglect some important points, we can neglect some thoughts, important thoughts, which has to be discussed, right? So now maintain eye contact with speakers to demonstrate that that one is listening, not just looking at your evaluator. So you have to see properly. You should establish your eye contact when you are speaking. So everybody should uh, actively involved in that. So you have to give a chance to others to speak, and accordingly, when your turn will come, you have to speak. This is how the listening skills you have to maintain while you are having a group discussions. Help in getting cues about when it is the speakers going to stop, and the chance to start making a point. So you have to follow the different types of protocol in the group discussions. Okay, you have to follow, you have to when you want to be when there is a chance to speak something, you have to speak and you have to point some valid points in that. This initiated statement should be related to the previous speaker's point, and this is because of agreeing, disagreeing, and elaborating on the different types of purposes on the speakers. Okay, so you have to very carefully paying attentions to that particular discussions, right? So listening skills also very important when we are having a interactive of group GT or group discussions, right? Next, you will have reasoning skills. Okay, so once has to be speak. Once has to speak relevant to the topic. Okay, analyze the topic or what others have spoken and perhaps the same. You have to analyze this. To do this, every opinion and especially the topic has to be paid attention to. Now, without using a proper discussions or reasoning based discussions, we cannot have a fruitful discussions, right? So now you have to see our topic is this. You have to always concentrate on the topic, and whatever the different types of thoughts, opinions you have, especially regarding to this topic, you have to be very careful and you have to discuss on that. So irrelevant topics cannot be discussed because it cannot give you a good output of that, right? So reasoning skill must have, one should have a reasoning skills. It should be properly represented in front of the group discussions, right? So now this is how the reasoning skills is very important for interactive GD. Next, leadership skills. Sometimes we should, because why we need this group discussions, because we have to discuss so many features, we have to discuss so many things related to our data, selected, deselected, or we are taking for different types of analysis over here. So now leadership skills, a person who is able to maneuver the flow of the discussions, who can control, okay, leadership, right? Who can control the discussions, encourages the opinions from all the members, and someone has to be the skills, so they can promote or they can encourage the different types of and different members, so they can have their opinions properly, motivate the others to follow him and discussions, and simultaneously, so there may be chances some members they may have confusion, they may have nervousness, right? So now a good leader should control that, they can motivate, or the leaders can motivate the weaker part or weaker members, okay, those who are involved in the group discussion, so they can put their exact thoughts and ideas in the group discussions. So leadership skills is very important when we are going for group discussions. Otherwise, it will be one-sided, or it will be no use of conducting the group discussions, right? So this is how we can use group discussions as a leadership skills is very important in this particular stage in group discussions. Then we will have initiation. So we have to start it, right? Someone has to start. Initiative taken by any persons shows his her inclinations to do work, right? So can make a favorable part impressions by making a valid point. Okay, sometimes we can start initiate a valid points, right? But if an initiator does not do his job well, right, sometimes there may be problem, then the damage done can be uh, irreparable. So now sometimes, so those who are taking proper initiations, or those who are starting the discussions, or he may or she may have a proper control over him, that means there should not be any problem in the discussions. Okay, so that is also one skills we can consider, that is initiativeness or initiations. Again, we'll have assertiveness should make your point in convincing manner so that others by others points. So you have to convince others that is this point is valid point. So everybody should accept it. Then next, your skill must be flexibility. Do not just stick to your arguments, or dismiss your others' opinion. So sometimes what happens, this is a human nature, right? So what they do, whatever, whether the point is valid or not, so they are stick to that point. People are very strict to their points, whether it is wrong or whether they won't listen others. So you have to rectify sometimes, you have to accept sometimes, and you have to see everybody's decisions, right? So here this is discussion, it's not a debate. So a group discussion is done to elicit the best course of actions. So why we are going for group discussions? We have to come out a proper, we have to come out a good result on that. If someone makes a better point than others, then other persons should be flexible enough to accept it, right? You should not be jealous about this. You should not be very arrogant, or you cannot be always protected or interrupted others, right? Because if it is valid point, if it is very good point, you just appreciate. So that's the way to conduct a group discussions. Okay, because we are conducting the group discussion for the betterment. Okay, here we are not having some someone say, okay, this is my point, it's not accepted here, or someone cannot say this is wrong or this is right. Okay, so what will happen, it gives a different impact, or the discussions may spoil completely. So you have to think accordingly, because at the end of this discussions, you should have a good result, you should have a good stuff. Okay, you can take and you can use for your further decisions in the organizations. Awareness, okay, you should have awareness about the individuals, you should know each other, you should know the topic, okay, what exactly the discussion is going on. So reading is required to enhance your awareness and make good impressions. Sometimes before conducting the group discussions, whatever the relevant information you just prepare and you should collect, you should read something, so it helps for your group discussion. That is also, you need some steps, or you have to very careful when we are conducting this particular stages like group discussions. Interactive group discussions, we have a different kinds of group discussions: topical group discussions, case studies, and abstract group discussions. We have topical, we have a concrete topic, we have to discuss on that. Okay, so in that particular stage you will find different kinds of discussions. So based on the topics you can have, sometimes you will have, because in topics group discussions it is already decided. For example, I can say after this COVID, right, this pandemic, the impact of Indian economics, right, Indian economics. If it are discussions, the already the topic is given. So that topic, based on this topic, you can discuss on that. Sometimes you will have a different kinds of case studies, right? So different types of issues, right, as a case. So you can decide on that. That time, case studies, there may be chances of getting some role play also on that. So you can take a case and you can roll on that, and you can come come to the end, or at the end of this case studies, you will find the exact solutions for that. So these are the different kinds of group discussions, okay, and we'll have some solutions on that. Abstract group discussion, that means you should you don't know instantly you are discussing, okay, before entering or before establishing or before conducting the group discussions, we don't know the topics exactly, and after that you are involving and you are exploring different kinds of thoughts and ideas, right? So that time we can have abstract group discussions. So now these are the different kinds of discussions. Why we are going for? Because when we are going for our mining or when we are going for our data analysis, so sometimes we need some discussions also, group discussions also. So now interactive discussions, group discussions also part of your attribute selections. We can say from we can reach to a particular attributes or selective attributes we can have, right? So now next you will have what type of evaluations criteria must be when we are going for group discussion. You have to evaluate it because there may be chances of the group discussions fruitful or may not be. So now you have to evaluate it based on the different criteria. We have a different here criteria content. Okay, as per the content you have to evaluate. Suppose depends on different types of contents whether it is group the discussion is very effective or not. You can judge that. You can find out, evaluate that. Analytical skills, you can see analysis, analytical things, whether as per the analytical part you can have this discussion and how effective it is. Reasoning skills, as I told, the reasoning skills, then organizational skill, how to conduct this, communication skill based on the communications, how effectively you are interacting with this. So these are the different kinds of then again you have a creativity. Now your thoughts, your creativity, ideas, okay, for your group discussion, that can be evaluated here. So now these are the different discussions on evaluating the criteria. I think it is in this particular sessions we have completed the group discussions as a part of your attribute selections or selections of data to from data to your selection attributes, right? So now next time we'll discuss about the different content of your, that is your matrix problems, right? We have to represent the problems with different tabular format or dimensional format. This discussion will be in the next session. So till then, if you have doubts on this, you can put in the discussion forums and we can discuss this. Okay. Thank you, students. Thank you a lot.